Today we're going to talk about three very interrelated people whose names you may know from history, although you may not. I really had a very weak knowledge of classical history growing up, and I've had to do a lot of digging around just to find a very superficial bit of background that I'll share with you today. The reason that we're talking about these three people, and they are Socrates, the great philosopher, Pericles, the great Athenian general, and Aspasia, who is known both for being a mentor or muse to both Socrates and Pericles, as well as the mistress and later common law wife of Pericles, and how each of them, specifically Socrates and Pericles, reached the pinnacle of their creative genius. And the reason that this is important is that if you are an AI person and you've been educating yourself via whatever means, maybe you've gone to the Northwestern Master of Science Data Science program where I teach. Maybe you've been self-studying. Maybe you've gone through all kinds of different courses and online MOOCs and whatever you could do to build up your AI machine learning knowledge. And you're at that transition point, okay? You've completed what we're going to call the hero's journey. You've done enough projects. You've assembled a baseline portfolio. You know what you can do. There's a difference between the you now and the you say a year ago when you were just starting out and you really didn't know AI at all. So now you can somewhat confidently and somewhat competently say, yes, I am an AI person. I can take data. I can figure out what algorithms to use. I know how to put the data through the algorithms. I know how to assess results. I know how to interpret. So you're at that career transition stage where you're really wanting to use what you know and move forward in this new realm. Now, a clarifying thought here, and it's this. You likely fall into one of two major archetypal categories. And there are more. There are actually 6, truly 8 major archetypes that you might move into post your grand hero's journey. Hero's journey being you in the Luke Skywalker phase of studying first with Obi-Wan Kenobi, then with Yoda, defeating first the Death Star and then whatever it was in the next movie. But you've done these heroic exploits and you know you are capable. You are now a Jedi warrior and you believe it. It's not a sort of imposter syndrome thing or like, I'm trying on a coat that's too large and maybe I'll grow into it someday. No, you've earned this. You know that. But you're about to go into the next stage. And the two most likely avenues for you, next stage, are this. One is you become a magician. That is, you become a Gandalf the Grey who later becomes Gandalf the White. Or, I'm staying with a Lord of the Rings analogy, you become an Aragorn who becomes crowned king at the end of the Lord of the Rings series. One or the other, magician or emperor. The magician creates something out of nothing. The magician finds a concept and brings it into reality. But it's a conceptual thing, and it can lead, very likely in your case, to creating AI programs that do things that have never been done before. And that would include perhaps finding the data set, collecting, curating, refining that data set, annotating it if that's what needs to happen, all those things as pre-processing, as well as collecting the algorithms, refining the algorithms, and so on. If you are an emperor, you're in a more pragmatically, tangibly focused. Classic emperors are, for example, Genghis Khan. The first thing an emperor does when an emperor takes over new territory is creates new processes and procedures, mostly to drive information reporting and revenue. So in the case of the Roman conquest in the Roman Empire, you had Roman roads, Roman aqueducts. In the case of Genghis Khan, he built out roads and he built a sort of pony express system, all designed to deliver information out, bring information in, and of course, collect taxes. So you are likely one or the other. You are either a Ilya Sutskever. Remember, Ilya was the first person, along with Alex Krizhevsky and his mentor, of course, Geoffrey Hinton, to build out the first deep layered CNN that did that initial let's recognize the cat in the video image. Now, of course, he's been chief scientist at OpenAI, and we're not going to go into politics. We're staying away from corporate politics today. Other extreme, Elon Musk. Elon is a classic emperor The man has built empires, truly. You know, everything from Tesla and SpaceX to X, the Twitter replacement, to his original investment in OpenAI. And the list goes on. New AI company that he's building. Or you could be an emperor-magician combination, which is like Sam Altman. Sam, early founder of the Y Combinator, founder of OpenAI. But he's got the businessman's head, as well as, let's develop this new technology. So you are likely in this spectrum, some combination of magician on one end, magician-emperor combination, emperor. Someplace in this spectrum, so to speak, of being an Ilya, a Sam, or an Ellen. Now, with that, and you just take a moment, breathe, place yourself. And by the way, I tend to be in a magician role. I create stuff. I make inventions. I'm also very much in what we'll call a high priestess role, which means I need a lot of white space. I need a lot of meditation time. When my schedule gets too packed at all with meetings and go-dos or a lot of things to do, I get very, not just distracted, but unhappy. I'm not in my good space. I'm a magician high priestess combination. High priestess is like a magician who just spends a lot of time in a very quiet meditative space. So here we are. We're going to talk about you. And the way that you factor in is this. We're going to take a look at two major life stories. One Socrates, the other Pericles. We'll take a look at the role of Aspasia, who figured prominently in both their lives, and see how this impacts you, because you are at the point very likely of making career moves. And well before you tweak that resume, modify your online portfolio, start sending out the resumes, start interviewing, you're doing this thoughtful reflection on who am I, what do I want to do next, what do I want to create, whether it's a magical thing that you build out of software and data, or is it a businessy thing, or is it a combination? So let's talk about Socrates. We're beginning with Socrates. Socrates is born in 470 BCE, before the Christian era. And just to place him historically, Aspasia was born at about the same time, and Pericles is about 25 years older than both Aspasia and Socrates. Socrates was born into a modestly well-off family. He inherited enough wealth from his father's estate to be comfortable. And he also received a very good classical education, such as they had at that time. But he was never concerned about the financial matters of life. He dressed very simply. He ate simply. He didn't drink a lot of wine. His sex life, by and large, from what reports are, was fairly abstemious. And he devoted himself to the life of the mind. Oh, and by the way, he was not good looking. He kind of had, it's described as a broad, flat nose, sort of upturned, so his nose goes like this. And he's got bulging eyes like this. And he's got a big pot belly. He was not exactly a looker, and he was not a man for the ladies or for the boys. He was into the life of the mind. He was a magician. He was creating things with his thought, and that was all-consuming for him, to the point where he was typically very poorly groomed. He didn't bathe much. Not that baths were that easy to do, but he didn't bathe much. He had one ragged old coat that he wore for forever. You're getting the picture, right? Socrates was a man of his own mind. He didn't hesitate to hold his own opinion against overwhelming odds. There was at one point, very close to the end of his life, where he was told, along with 4 others, to go and arrest a certain man, bring him to the ruling tribunal so that he could be executed. And Socrates just walked out. The other 4 men went and arrested the man. Socrates basically flipped them a metaphorical you-know-what and walked away. And that contributed to his eventual demise. We've moved this inside between the construction noise from a neighbor on the other side of the fence and the wind. The wind was really picking up. We were just not going to have any kind of sound quality. So here we are inside, and there's a fan. There's a fan way up embedded into the rafter ceiling. And I have no control over that at all. So here we are. It just had rain overnight. It's hot. It's humid. There's going to be noise wherever we are. It's just what it is. So let's go back to Socrates, alrighty? So Socrates, flipping them the you-know-what, walking out, that's the kind of guy he is. He would hold his own based on what he thought. Now, this notion of Socratic thought, the thing that he is most credited for evolving, he used to hang out with Aspasia. They were contemporaneous. They were about the same age. Aspasia, by the time that she got a little bit established, was the mistress of Pericles, the Athenian general. And we'll get to Pericles in a little while in another vid. But Pericles divorced his wife. Apparently it was later that he met Aspasia. They became very, very involved almost right away. And she became his live-in common law wife. They wouldn't allow a marriage because she was Turkish. Her hometown was Miletus in Turkey. So you've got that classic Greek-Turkey thing going on. The two did not, the Greeks are not at all pleased about having a Turkish woman living not only in their town, but being the love object of their top general. But that's what it was. So, Aspasia, Socrates, about the same age. Aspasia came to Athens as a young woman, very well educated by her family before she was forced to move for various family and financial reasons. And Socrates is looking for people with whom to have discourse. Aspasia began slowly building up a little bit of a home salon, meaning in the classic tradition of the great saloniers, which she essentially established, there would be food, there would be wine, there'd probably be a chance for Socrates to take a bath, whether he wanted to or not. If he was going to sit down and have a meal with Aspasia, I'm betting that she said, hey, let my young ladies here take you off to the bath chamber and freshen up a little bit. I'm sure of it, okay? What he really wanted was intelligent discourse with a like mind. In a totally different source, I read how Aspasia counseled two people, a husband and wife, who were having severe disagreements with each other, and she basically took each of them down a logic path that made them realize that the best thing that they could do would be to try to be the best spouse for each other. But she used logic, and it was a question-answer. The question-answer. So that they came to their own conclusion. She wasn't telling them how to think. She drew them to the realization. Now imagine this. Socrates has had a fair education, but he's going over to Aspasia's place. It is truly Pericles' home. So Aspasia is living there, and Pericles is totally fine with Aspasia having Socrates over often because he knows this isn't going to be a love interest, and basically she's after the intellectual stimulation, and Pericles has plenty to do elsewhere, so he's not begrudging her this. Aspasia is well off enough to provide a decent environment for conversation. They converse. So often that it's recorded in describing Socrates that he had no mean teacher of rhetoric in Aspasia, meaning he had a pretty good teacher, and her name was Aspasia. To the best that I've come across in all the readings that I've done on Socrates leading up to this little conversation that you and I are having, I haven't heard any other person referenced as a teacher or thought provoker for Socrates, except for Aspasia. So what does that give us? Aspasia is renowned for using a logical question pondering answer, come to the next question, come to the next question, come to the realization approach in cultivating answers in the people that she's talking with. Socrates is coming over to visit with her often. We don't know, but often. Socrates is a bit of a rough diamond, okay? He is really rough around the edges. He's great for the creative thinking and the putting the ideas out there, but he needed someone to help him refine that, and that person was Aspasia. So let's revise our notion of how Socratic thought might have evolved. Socrates interacting with Aspasia. Aspasia coaching Socrates on rhetoric, which is not just the art of public speaking, but how do you formulate your ideas logically? How do you communicate persuasively? Aspasia, teacher of Socrates. So it goes Aspasia, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. The chain of Western civilized thought very likely begins with Aspasia. It's been it's been lovely to have this moment with you. The reason that I'm bringing this up with you today, of course, I've been thinking about this for a while and longing to have this share with you. But yesterday we had our first ever Themesis AI salon. Some very, very sharp people in the room and asking intelligent questions, thought-provoking, deep questions, covering a range of AI topics. And salon is the environment in which brilliance has always flourished. And we'll talk about the nature of salon in some forthcoming vids, but take this into your heart, take this into your mind. If you are seeking to move out from your formal but fairly straightforward regimented education into either being a magician or an emperor or a combination of those, then the place where you will most likely get some sort of fruition of your brilliance, of your creativity, of your genius is going to be in a salon where you can talk with peers. The salon will very likely be hosted by a woman because women are more typically, over the course of history, we're talking well over a few thousand years, known for having environments where other people can express their thoughts as opposed to necessarily dominating it with their own thinking. So they're more likely to elicit the genius of others. This is Aliana Moren from Themesis. Have a lovely day. We'll see you soon.